Do children make you happy or do they make you miserable? Maybe the answer is a bit of both, depending on the day, depending on what time of the day it is. We talk about this question a lot on the Happy Families podcast because the National Children's Commissioner, Anne Hollands, is on the record as saying that there is no such thing as a happy family. Not long term anyway. Today we unpack what makes a family happy and whether or not parents can truly be happy when they're raising their children. G'day, this is the Happy Families podcast, real parenting solutions every day on Australia's most downloaded parenting podcast. We're Justin and Kylie Coulson. Kylie, out of 10, how happy have our children made you?
Today?
Yes, specifically today.
Let's make it a 2.
It has been a pretty rugged day, hasn't it?
It has been.
In fact, it's been such a rugged day. I'm not into threats. I'm not that guy. But in my efforts to preserve your sanity, I did tell Emily, our 11-year-old, that if this keeps up, there's no more homeschool. We're just going to send it back to school. Here's the research. My favourite study on this is Daniel Kahneman. He surveyed just over 800 Texas women, all working mums. And what that research showed, and I've written about it in my own books, it's been written about all over the place. Women said that being with their children was, quote, less enjoyable than many other activities such as watching TV, shopping or preparing food. That is, I would rather prepare a meal than play with my children.
I don't know who these women are, but I would pick the kids over having to do dinner another night every single time.
Let me do the ironing. Leave me alone. I don't know. Now, I wrote about this in the Parenting Revolution. There's something that's very, very important in this study that gets overlooked in every single article that I've ever read about it. People go for the headline. Mums would rather do anything than play with the kids. But the mums were all working mums and they were filling in these questionnaires in the morning and in the evening. I don't know about you, but it's typically challenging to do anything with children in the morning or the evening. Like, they're the hardest times. That's when you're tired. It's when you're under time pressure.
That's why it's called witching hour for a reason.
It's really difficult. So here's what we've known since the 1970s. Sarah McClanahan's famous Columbia studies where she found that having children, once children are born, parents experience a decrease in happiness, a drop in marital satisfaction. And that only recovers once the kids leave home.
It's a pretty glib outlook, isn't it?
Glib, glum, a bit of both maybe. Here's the thing. It's kind of true. Research is really clear that marriages take a massive hit when a baby comes on board. On average, you see marriage and relationship satisfaction go down. So too does the satisfaction around intimacy. And it kind of stays down there for a pretty long time. Once the kids are teenagers, it's pretty obvious. When I go into schools and do my seminars, the parents that have got the brightest eyes, the bushiest tails, the ones who look the happiest, they're the ones that are raising young children. And you know who doesn't even bother show up? Parents of teens. They're like, we're nearly finished and we're kind of over it and he can't tell us anything now. It's too late. We're done. My favourite quote of all time on this topic comes from Dan Gilbert. Daniel Gilbert wrote, he's written a couple of books about happiness and he also is a Harvard psychologist, and he said, quote, "The only symptom of empty nest syndrome is non-stop smiling." So do we need to talk about why parenting can be challenging?
I don't think so. I think we've got that under wraps.
If you're a parent, you know. Jennifer Senior wrote a book called All Joy and No Fun about parenting, and this is what she said. She said kids provoke, quote, "a couple's most frequent arguments, more than money, more than work, more than in-laws." So it's not just that children are tiring and expensive and cause sleep deprivation and mess up your work schedule and your exercise schedule and your everything else that's important to your schedule. They actually create more conflict. Like, one of the most popular questions I get is, how do I get my husband to agree with me about parenting? Literally, that's what mums always say. How do I get my husband to agree with me?
I kind of feel like the kids are getting a hard rap here. This isn't actually about kids at all. If two partners can't work out a situation, how is it the kid's fault?
Well,
being on the same page, that's a partner issue. That's not a children's issue.
Right, but it wouldn't be an issue if you didn't have kids.
No, but if you didn't have kids, there'd be something else that you clearly aren't aligned with either.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, don't shampoo the dog in the laundry, do it outside. I just don't think that the conflicts are going to be as big. It is the most argued about thing in marriages. Money's close behind, but yeah, the kids are right up there.
We don't argue about the kids.
No, we don't, because you're married to the guy that's written all the books about parenting.
Oh, you're hilarious.
What do you mean?
I can't believe you just said that.
You do more parenting than me. And when it gets too hard, I literally do say, I'm handing this one over to you. I'm out. We don't argue. We just sort of, we handball. It's just a hospital pass. All right, I can't take it. Let's see what you've got. You do that to me as well. Let's be honest. All right.
Show me what you got.
So we need to talk about a couple of things here. First off, it is more complicated than it seems. Part of the problem when it comes to all of this conversation around kids and happiness is the way we measure happiness. So having children makes you unhappy. The happiness impact varies. Older fathers, for example, get a happiness boost, Kylie. And we know a few older dads, and they are super happy. Like, they love being dads. The older mums, not quite so much. But the older dads are like, this is the best thing we've ever done. So glad we did this. Young parents and single parents suffer the most significant happiness losses.
So the only reason that older men have a happiness boost is because they actually treat their kids like their grandkids.
So here's the other thing that I want to add. Cultural and policy factors matter as well. So parents from countries that have got really great childcare policies like Norway and Hungary tend to be happier than childless couples. Families from the US, Australia and the UK tend to be less happy. Why? Because our child policies, our family supports and our general level of community, just they're not as strong, they're not as high. So after the break, we're going to talk about what Paul Bloom, the author of a wonderful book called The Sweet Spot, says about this whole happiness thing and having kids. We're going to talk about whether parents will own up to regretting having children. And then the one thing that is perhaps more important in this conversation than anything if you want to find joy in family life. Kylie, Paul Bloom has written a book. I've got it here on my shelf in a bright yellow cover. It's called The Sweet Spot. Paul Bloom is a world-leading academic, and he said this, quote, "There's more to life than happiness. Parenting provides something deeper, something having to do with satisfaction, purpose, and meaning." Another guy, Roy Baumeister, who is one of the world's leading academics and has probably published more papers than just about anyone on the planet. He wrote a book called Meanings of Life, also just here on my shelf. And he says the same thing. Parenting is not actually about happiness. If you're having children and wanting to be happy, prepare to be disappointed. But happiness comes and goes. What you get a really steady supply of is meaning and purpose. You get a whole lot of really good. So you get this significance, this sense of importance and meaning. Parents, both mothers and fathers, tend to say that their lives have more meaning than those of non-parents.
I think the challenge is when you're in the thick of it, it's hard to see the meaning. Like you get so bombarded with the hard.
Don't tell me this is meaningful. I just want to break.
Yeah.
I just want to smile again.
I just want to sleep.
Yeah. Well, if I sleep, I probably am more likely to smile. So what I find really fascinating in this conversation is some research, again, by Paul Bloom, where parents have actually been said, do you regret having children? And surprisingly, to me, somewhere between sort of 7 and 14% across different studies say, yeah, I do. Which means that somewhere between 85 and 93% of people say, no, I don't. I could never regret having the kids. And Paul Bloom says these are really weirdly low numbers when you consider how challenging parenting is. You'd expect that it would be higher. And therefore, you've got this question, why? Why do parents say that they don't regret it if it has been shown so consistently for 5 decades now to bring, quote unquote, happiness levels down? And there's a couple of hypotheses. Number one, there's just the social pressure.
But when you know how research is done and it's usually anonymous, and I don't see social pressure as playing a part in this kind of data.
That's a really, really important point. However, society does glamorize the wonders of parenthood, and to buck that trend and say, actually, I hate it and I wish I hadn't done it. It's one thing to say it's hard And mummy bloggers and TikTokers all over the place say it's hard, and there's all sorts of memes everywhere about how hard it is. But to actually say I regret it, that's a really, really big call. And that to me still contravenes a major social norm.
I think about some of the other studies that we've talked about and people willing to hurt other people to the point where they're not breathing. And you're going to tell me that social norms would suggest that I can't say I regret being a parent?
I don't know. It's a big call.
I'm really pushing against this one.
All right. Memory is another one. Think childbirth. So we remember the peaks. We forget the 99% of mundane awfulness of parenting.
I wouldn't put childbirth in as a peak.
No. Well, you know what I mean, though? Like, no, I'm saying it's a trough. But just the other day, we were talking and you literally said, I could go back.
No, what I'm saying
no,
to
you did. You said
childbirth.
I could go back.
I'm talking about when they hand me that baby. I'm not talking about going through all that pain again.
No, but you said if I could have that feeling again, I'd go back.
Yeah, the after feeling, not the in the middle feeling.
You've got to do the before you get to the after.
But I don't want that.
You said that. And that's what so many people do. So there may be some justification behind the memory effects there, where people are saying raising children, being a parent makes me happy because they're thinking about the snuggles and the tickles and we just had Indiana Sky here again a couple of nights ago, and that beautiful almost 2-year-old voice as she's figuring out all of her words and walking around.
Well, she's not even saying words, but she's having a conversation with you, and it's just all this little jibber 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 jibber, and she knows exactly what she's saying to you.
So the big one, the one that I buy into most is that most parents love their children, and it seems terrible to admit that the world would be better if someone you love didn't exist. Like, you don't regret having children even though you admit that your life could be better without them, but you still don't regret it because you love them. Like to me, this is the key insight. We say that having children makes us happy because it does. It actually does. Because of the love that we have towards them, it means that our choice to have them has so much value above and beyond whatever effect they're having on our happiness and meaning, that we just say, yes, it is one of the most transcendent, one of the most purposeful, one of the most meaningful, and one of the most joy-giving experiences of my life, perhaps precisely because of the sacrifice that's involved.
Well, I think that's the key. The things that we are willing to sacrifice the most for are the things that, generally speaking, have the most meaning. And because we wouldn't be willing to sacrifice without that.
Correct. And when you think of the most tragic stories, as people talk about the hardship and trauma that they have in their lives, whatever reason they're going through hardship, usually there's a lack of love somewhere. There's parents who just didn't give them that love.
When we understand how significant connection is to our well-being, as parents, we have this opportunity to build these connections with people we actually made. We actually made them.
I was going to say exactly that. These are people. Like our children are these wonderful people who we just grow to love in such profound ways. And the more you give, the more you get out of parenting. Like, there's just something beautiful about it.
I love the full circle moments about family life, because in essence, we have literally grown this human being from the tiniest little cell, and then we have the opportunity to actually grow them into people, and from a child into a teenager, and then from a teenager into an adult. But the crazy thing is, I think in so many ways, my kids have taught me more than I'll ever teach them. Like, honestly, the person I am today,
because of those 6 girls,
has been shaped because of what they have taught me.
And not always comfortably.
No.
There's, we need to wrap it up. Our time's done. Parenting and happiness. Does it make you happy? I used to actually, and sometimes when I'm teaching my seminars, I still laugh and say, no, not really. But it does. It does in the most profound and transcendent ways. Paul Bloom, let's wrap this up with his quote. He said, if the loss of a child, and we've seen this happen in my family, if the loss of a child would be total annihilation, then having a child healthy and happy and sound must be annihilation's opposite, which sounds pretty terrific. Boom. Actually, Bloom. Paul Bloom. Do you like that one? Boom. Bloom. Okay. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. Hey, thanks, JR, for the great work you do. If you'd like more information about making your family happier, I've written an incredible book. I'm calling it incredible. I spoke to somebody the other day who told me it was incredible, so I'm just quoting them. It's called The Parenting Revolution. Get it wherever you buy your books. It will make your family happier, and it will talk about this paradox of kids, happiness, meaning, purpose, satisfaction, all that stuff. The Parenting Revolution, available everywhere you get good books. It's published by ABC Books, and you can get more info about general happiness and your family at happyfamilies.com.au.